Okay, I'm going to let everybody in. We're at 12. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon for our session with the Planning Department. We are very excited to have Lisa and David give us their time this morning to answer questions around housing and transportation. We started this discussion at our joint session day back in November. And it was so well received, and we ran out of time, and people had additional questions. And we thought we'd love to introduce this to the whole network. So, this is actually our first live Q&A session that we're doing on our online community platform. So, David and Lisa, thank you for being guinea pigs with that. And thank you all. Hopefully, you got to us either through the online community platform or through our regular website. But we're really glad to have you here. We have a lot to get to, and we have a short amount of time. So I'm just going to dive right in and get started with introductions. We'll have some people joining us as we go because there's more signed up than are here right now, but we'll go ahead and get started. Um, so David and Lisa, if I could just have you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your role at Montgomery Planning and just tell us about a project that you're working on that you find generates the most engagement from community members and why you think it's a hot topic.
Yeah, I can start. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is David Anspacher. I'm the division chief for Montgomery Planning's Countywide Planning and Policy Division. The division focuses on a lot of different things. It includes transportation planning, historic preservation, housing, zoning, water quality, among other things. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Um, and turn it over to Lisa to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Dave. My name's Lisa Gavoni. I'm a planning supervisor at the planning department. I've been there 9 years, and for the first 9 years, I was the housing planner focusing on all things housing. I was recently promoted to planning supervisor, and now I focus on housing, but also zoning and infrastructure. I'm also, I have to mention this, a proud emerging leaders graduate from 2019, so I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you for saying that, Lisa. I was going to shout that out anyway. If you didn't, we're very proud of you. And Lisa also just got a promotion. So congratulations to you. So our next question is on the flip side, one is one initiative or aspect of your work that you wish more community members understood or asked about?
I don't actually think either of us fully answered your first question, so maybe I can take a start at that as well, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one project that I'm working on right now that is pretty controversial is Montgomery County is updating its master plan of highways and transitways, which is a very wonky document. However, it has one recommendation in there that the planning board is considering. It is, quite controversial at this time. So Mid-County Highway. So Mid-County Highway is a long planned highway that would connect the Clarksburg community to Germantown, Montgomery Village, and the Shady Grove Metro Rail Station. It's planned to run along the east side of Maryland through 55. About half the road has been constructed, the southern portion, and about 80% of the land has been set aside for the northern portion. But the northern portion runs through some very sensitive environmental areas. So a number of years ago, county leadership, including the county executive and the county council, largely expressed their intent not to move forward with constructing this roadway. They didn't remove it from our master plan, but they did instruct the planning board to assume that it will not be built when preparing new master plans. So this has left, as you can imagine, many people in the Clarksburg area feeling somewhat abandoned by the county. They are suffering heavy congestion today, and they're concerned that if the road isn't constructed, the congestion could get even worse for them in the future. Others believe, of course, that Mid-County Highway is not consistent with our new general plan, Thrive Montgomery 2050, and our climate action plan. So it's a very hot topic right now because, again, the planning board is considering whether to recommend to the county council to leave the highway in the master plan or to remove the unbuilt sections.
And so one controversial project that I'm working on, or I was working on, is I was the project manager for Attainable Housing Strategies. So Attainable Housing Strategies was a study that the planning board sent up to the council last year that explored ways to add more types of housing to the county, but primarily in our single family zones. So those are zones that right now primarily only allow single family detached housing. And the planning board sent up a study that basically recommended allowing housing types like duplexes and triplexes in those single family zones. I spent the last year kind of on a tour talking about the planning board's recommendations. I had over 30 civic association and municipality meetings discussing the topic. The council has not taken action on attainable housing studies, and it's kind of influenced that the Housing Now package. For those of you that are following that, the Housing Now package allows more types of housing along some specific roads in the county. So that's a big controversial study, probably one of the most controversial studies and things that we've done at the planning department in quite some time. But it was really, I think, interesting to go around the county and listen to the different viewpoints. There was a lot of diversity of thought on the issue, and it just kind of shows, how diverse Montgomery County is on thought leadership.
Awesome. I'm just going to pause and see. I have one more question for you all, but this is a very interactive session with our group here. So I just want to see if anyone has a question on what you two have just mentioned before we move on. Leslie, I see your hand. You can unmute and just talk.
Hi, thanks for doing this. I have a recollection that a couple of years ago when Amazon was proposing its new headquarters or looking for a place for its new headquarters, and we were interested in that there was discussion that the council executive, whoever was saying stuff, was like, we will finish building the road. Was it Mid-County Highway that they were talking about that? They said there was a road that had not been finished, but they're like, we will finish this if you come here. And if I'm completely misremembering, feel free to say that.
My recollection, and it has been some time in a pandemic, is that it was Montrose Parkway. Montrose Parkway.
Okay.
Connect Veers Mill Road to North Bethesda.
Okay. That makes more sense location wise also. Thank you.
Naomi, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. It took me a minute to figure out how to raise my hand. I don't know why. So I am curious about the Mid-County Highway because you said it's very, I don't know, it's something that causes a lot of discussion. And I know that 200 also caused a lot of discussion years ago. It took forever to build. And what is the status? Can you say a little bit more about that and where would it go? And could you just point us maybe a link of where it goes? Because I have to say I haven't followed it at all.
You can certainly put a link in the chat. So currently, Mid-County Highway starts near Shady Grove Road and continues again on the east side of Maryland 355 up to Montgomery Village. So it's east of the Lake Forest Mall site, and then it stops there. And the plan is to continue it all the way up to Ridge Road, connecting to Snowden Farm Parkway in Clarksburg. So it's about a 4-mile stretch of roadway that's unbuilt.
And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say one follow-up. Is the road that's currently been built like used a lot? Is it have a good flow of traffic? Is there a basis there to say like this has been a successful portion and therefore we should keep it?
Yeah, no, it is a well-used road. And again, just to be clear, no one's talking about removing the existing segments. The only question is whether to build the other half of the road that has been planned.
Thanks. Yeah, if you don't mind throwing that link to where it's proposed to be built would be great.
And I can also send that out later, David, if it's too hard to find right now while we're asking you all of these questions. That's
Get a
completely
housing
fine.
question, I'll search it up.
Before we go much further, there is one other thing that we just like to kind of clarify for everybody, because there's sometimes confusion about what the planning department, which is where you all work, actually does compared to the county council's role in decision making. So could you help demystify that by explaining how the planning department's attainable housing strategies inform but differ from legislative proposals like the county's More Housing Now package?
Sure. So, the Attainable Housing Strategies is a study. The County Council asked us in 2021 to undertake this study to look at ways to increase the type of housing in our single-family zones. It focused on something called missing middle housing, which is, kind of the duplex, triplex, quadplexes, small apartment buildings, townhouses, the housing in between single-family detached and multifamily. But as a study, it has no teeth. It requires zoning tax amendments and bills to be implemented, and those are subject to council approval. On the inverse, the More Housing Now package, certainly there are elements of it that was inspired by Attainable Housing Strategy, but it is introduced by council members Friedson and council members Fanny Gonzalez and co-sponsored by others. And the planning board and planning department play a role in evaluation of the zoning text amendments in the package, and we will take them to the planning board. But the county council has the final say on approval of these bills in this housing package.
Thank you, Lisa. That was a very clear and concise explanation. I appreciate it. David, do you want to add anything, or did Lisa pretty much cover everything?
Oh, I feel like she got it.
Okay, perfect. How do planning recommendations translate into actual policies and laws, and where are the inflection points for community engagement?
So I can start, and Dave, you can, jump in. I think that the two biggest out, opportunities for public input come from the master planning process and the regulatory process. So the master planning process is a 2 to 3 year process where we work for the community on developing a long range vision for their community. There are land use and zoning recommendations, but there are also housing recommendations, transportation recommendations, historic preservation recommendations, so that it's a wide ranging, vision for that community. And we really do that in conjunction with the community through community meetings, through workshops, through charrettes. We work together to build that vision. Again, the county council has final say of that master plan, but so it kind of goes that planning staff will create a working draft of their recommendations, and there's a public hearing on the planning board, the planning staff's recommendations, and then there's a planning board draft, and then there's another public hearing at the county council level, and then the council approves it. The other part is we have, after those master planning are approved and they have zoning recommendations, we often receive development applications for development or redevelopment of a specific property. And the planning board holds public hearings for those development projects where the community is allowed to give input for the planning board's decision on approval or denial of that project.
And I'll just add, as an example, the master plan of highways and transitways is underway right now. And it is, like I said, a pretty wonky exercise, but we try to find a variety of ways to engage the public. So for example, with that project, we created an interactive map with all of the roadway recommendations in the map, and it had, if you would click on a link or on a particular roadway, it would explain what was being recommended on that road. And there's an opportunity, for example, to type a comment in and send it to our staff. We did many meetings around the county to explain the master plan. We also conducted 3 public hearings for this effort, including one where we moved the planning board to Germantown, which doesn't happen that often. It's a big operation to do that. But we were able to move the planning board to Germantown. Clarksburg is quite a distance from Wheaton, where the planning board meets, and so we thought this would be a way for more people to be able to engage in the public hearing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is your session to all of our alums. I think it would be really helpful for David and Lisa when you ask a question to say, of course, your name, the year of Leadership Montgomery, and where you're affiliated with now before your question, just so that we can also kind of have a little bit of alumni engagement as we go. I see Sarah. Do you want to start? Sarah's with Leadership Montgomery, so we'll have her start us off.
Gotta push that button. I'm not only a Leadership Montgomery staff member, but I am also a Leadership Montgomery alum, Emerging Leaders class of 2015, the inaugural Emerging Leaders class. And thank you both for being here. I really appreciated the work of the planning department doing the attainable housing studies, particularly as someone who feels like they are a little bit of that missing middle, and would love to own a home in the community where I grew up. I had the pleasure of joining one of the community listening sessions that the council did around the study. And I found one of the things that was really challenging and being an audience member in that space was the seeming misunderstanding about what attainable housing is versus what affordable housing is versus what deeply affordable housing is. And I'm wondering what you all experienced as planners listening to those conversations, and what community education you think may be necessary for folks to really meaningfully engage in conversation around creating more housing in this community.
That's a really, really great question. I think there was a lot of misinformation about the attainable housing strategies. I think it's hard for us because we're not on the listservs, we're not on Nextdoor, where a lot of the misinformation is brewing. We have an e-letter where we have like an FAQ on our website where we try to kind of fix a lot of the misinformation, but it's really hard once it starts to fix it. I think the affordable housing versus, market rate attainable housing point of discussion was a huge point. And I think it influenced a lot of the Housing Now package of why there's a workforce housing component of it. And workforce housing is kind of is income restricted housing, but it's for kind of households earning, 70 to 120% AMI. So that middle income, that range. So I think, while there was a lot of misinformation about it, I think that it did influence the Housing Now package I think in a good way. I think that conversation kind of helped tailor where that package went. I think in the future, we need community engagement is hard. I think that we did as best as we could with attainable housing strategies. We did a lot of community meetings even before the listening sessions where it was, me and Dave out there answering the questions from the community. And so I think that did help a lot. We also received, I would say, thousands of emails on the topic that we, tried to be responsive of. I think in the future, I think that we need to just, continue with the fact sheets, the FAQs, the going out to the community, meeting them where they are. I think the listening sessions were great, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity for back and forth. So I think that back and forth that we had at those community meetings that Dave and I went to probably did the most in fixing the false narratives that were out there.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to jump in? Otherwise, I'm going to call in on Naomi, who
I
sent
have
in a question.
my hands raised. This is Janita
Sorry, I don't
Rodriguez.
see you. Yes, hi, Janira. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Janita Rodriguez, Emerging Leaders FY 2025. Yay, whoop, whoop. Montgomery College Community Engagement Manager. One of the things that, we work across the county is particularly, and I think you touch base, Lisa, about community engagement. How do you, not you particularly, how planning is reaching out to under-resourced communities and particularly emerging English residents, since we have so many newcomers moving to Montgomery County or in transit. I'm really interested about that because Montgomery, our office is really thrilled. We're really passionate in providing language access. So what are the methods that you use when you have these public hearings or focus groups? How do you provide assistance in terms of language access?
That's a great question. So I will say, this is an ongoing issue that we're working towards. So we're doing a couple of things. The first thing is we just had a meeting all in Spanish. So the meeting was given in Spanish, and if you needed translation, you were sent to another room in Zoom where it was translated to English. We find that meeting people where they are is the best way to reach hard to reach communities. We also are doing something called canvassing. So in a lot of our master plans, we're going door to door in apartment buildings where renters live. We know that public meetings tend to focus a lot on people that have time to show up, when they have time to drive to Wheaton, where, they're homeowners, they can afford babysitting, things like that. But when we go out to the communities and we're actually knocking on the doors, I think that we have a different impact. And honestly, since we've started doing this, as the person who writes the housing chapter of all our master plans, what we're hearing is so vastly different than from when we knock on doors from when we have a community meeting at our building. We're hearing a lot of things about code issues, people not being able to afford rent, a lot of issues with property management, that it just allows us to kind of, if it's not the planning board's focus, then we can, reach out to the Department of Community Affairs or DPS and kind of help with these issues. So those are two big things that we have, is just, making sure that translation is available, having meetings in different languages, and canvassing. And we also have something upcoming called the Planning Academy, where we're trying to get underrepresented and people that have not traditionally been involved in the planning process to get involved and learn about the planning process. We're hoping to launch that in June, but we're still working on the details, but we're hopeful that will be something that will also help.
Something that we do at the college, just to give you an example, everything that we do is in academic English, right? So we're trying to work right now in plain English practices that we are communicating with the residents, at an English that is their level and it's not as technical. Like I used to work at Metro, and when it comes to construction projects, it's a lot of lingo and terminology that sometimes the community might not be aware. So just something to think about as well.
You're absolutely right. I remember when we did the all Spanish meeting and I was in the other room getting the translation. The translation to English was hard for me to follow because it was such a technical presentation that it really made me think about like how we present our information in English. So that's really great advice.
Anyone else, if I'm missing a hand, please just unmute and talk away. Let's see, Naomi, can I call on you? You actually sent in a question.
I think Toby had a question. I saw her hand up and she just came off. And then I do have a follow-up question, so I'll go second after her.
Thank you. Toby.
Thank you. I was also looking for the hand raising thing. I was like, let me just go the old fashioned route. So my apologies. I have one question, 2 parts. I'd love to hear the latest on like the redevelopment of Lake Forest or White Flint.
I'm not sure if either of us can really speak to that, but I'll turn it over to Lisa if she has anything.
It's something that's come up. I'm not I'm not sure of any plans at this point, to be honest, but I could be wrong. We can also check with our leadership to see if they know anything and get back to you, but I don't think it's not something Dave and I are working on if there is something ongoing.
Does the county own, have developers turned over land to the county? Does the county own any of the land, or is it still all privately held?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Let us check and we can get back to Allison if we
Thank you.
find out any information.
Okay, this is going to be either a hard question or showing my ignorance. So I just recall like the planning board going around about Thrive Montgomery. Was that, I assume that was the planning board department. And all I heard was, don't worry, this is just a concept. We're not actually enacting anything. It's not a big deal. So don't get all up in arms about some of these points, which I think is a little strange because my understanding is Thrive Montgomery like sets the tone for what can be done and justifies it. And I'm sort of wondering your reaction to that. Like I've heard people say, oh, it's not a big deal. It's just a plan. It's just a concept. It's not actually going to be what happens. And you still have time to voice your opinion when it happens. But then when something happens, it's like, well, you had your chance when we did Thrive Montgomery. So this is what you agreed on, and this is what we're moving forward. And I'm just wondering, with this housing initiative, is it the same thing where it's like, this is what we're hoping to do, it's not a big deal, and then it kind of directs? I think that's where this disconnect and maybe a little lack of trust is coming.
That's a good point. So just for those general that don't know, Thrive Montgomery 2050 was a general plan that was recently adopted by the county council. It is a policy document, so it like Naomi said, it's not self-implementing. It requires legislation, zoning tax amendment and bills and master plans and development projects to be implemented, and CIP projects too. I think that at the time that Thrive was ongoing, there was a lot of concern that that was the self-implementing tool, that when Thrive was adopted, every home in the county was going to be turned into duplex, and that there would be eminent domain. So I think that our role in there was just trying to calm down and say that this is a policy document. There's still, when there is, a zoning tax amendment, there are public hearings, there's outreach. There will be other times to voice your opinion on specific changes that are proposed. So for the Housing Now package right now, there will be a public hearing at both the planning board and the county council that allows residents to voice their opinion on the change. So I think that is generally what we were trying to convey, is that Thrive Montgomery was not your last chance for input, that there are other, codified points of engagement through the public hearing process and the public process that allow that input. But I understand your point. Your point, is valid, that we do need to do a better job of building trust with the community. And our new director, Jason Sartori, that's one of his main goals. Really, that's part of the influence behind the Planning Academy. That's part of the influence through a lot of the public meetings that we've done and engagement that we've done on attainable housing strategy. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's just hard when then you have something and say, well, this follows Thrive Montgomery, and you had a chance already to, it's a little, it's hard. Like, don't worry about Thrive Montgomery. You'll have a chance to speak. Now's your chance to speak, but you agreed to Thrive Montgomery. So just a thought, throwing out there, just a comment.
That's what this is all about, Naomi. Thank you. Again, I'm searching for hands up. I know some of us may have, it's been a while since we've been in Zoom. We may have forgotten how to use the hands up. Also, please feel free to mute. Frankie, you sent in a question. I don't know if you want to
Hey,
ask
Allison.
it yourself.
Allison,
Yes.
Toby's raising her physical hand, so she's ready, but I'll just share with everyone that
Thank
if
you,
you see,
thank you, Sarah. I can't see everyone all at the same time, so that is why it's so helpful when you unmute and say things like that. Toby, please take it away.
Absolutely. And I'll just share with everyone, and I put it in the chat. There's a little react button. The icon on it is a heart. And when you click
I
that,
love
there's
it.
an option that says raise hand if that helps anyone. But that is there if you want to use it. But please, as Allison said, there's only 15 of us in this call. Just jump in, talk.
I
Great.
actually
Toby, yours.
thank you. I just wanted to, well, thank you for the FYI. Yeah, I guess I haven't been on Zoom for a little bit. Tried to cleanse the system. I wanted to thank the planning committee as someone who lives in Boyd's and has gone to the Germantown meeting. There's more than one that I can think of. I don't know if they were both. I know one was through planning. One was at Seneca Valley. Then there was another one, like a shred around the Boyd's Mark Trail Railroad Station. So thank you. Not just for ease, but it is a wildly different set of comments that you're getting up here than you're getting down county. So that was it.
Let's see, Frankie, you sent in a question. Are you able to ask it, or do you want me to go ahead and, there you are.
Yeah, hi, how are you? Thanks, everybody. Thanks to those who are hosting this. So our group, and we're in the current leadership core class. For our project is looking at affordable housing kind of solutions. And one in particular of exploration is container home housing. It should be like shipping containers would be adapted into affordable units. We know of one development in Salisbury. I believe we saw another in Silver Spring. Since being so specific, I think we're shifting more to affordable to dwelling units. It's an adaptable dwelling units. I think Olu may be on the call with me. We're going to be talking just after this, but the question is, what does zoning allow for that? Are there restrictions to this kind of development?
Zoning, there's no restrictions to the type of product in zoning, as long as you adhere to, the zoning rules, the setbacks, which the setbacks, the lot coverage, those types of rules. I would check with the Department of Permitting Services on the permitting side of it. From my understanding, when we were in 2019, we took a pretty big update for updating the accessory dwelling unit law. From my understanding, kind of like can wheel anything in, any type of modular thing, but it has to be affixed to a foundation and follow the zoning rules, and it would be okay. But I would double check with the Department of Permitting Services, and I can connect you with someone if you need to be connected with
Yeah, no, that would be great. We would want to be aware of any kind of restrictions in 2020 out of with regard to the accessory dwelling units. Thank you. Olu, I don't know if you're still on the call, if you had any follow-up on that.
Yeah, no, I'm still on the call, and thank you for jumping in, Frankie. My name is Olu Sheena. I'm in the same group that Frankie was referring to. I had heard previously that if you're looking at those like prefab units that we were talking about, that they'd be considered almost like a camping ground, camping site, or fall under that zoning code. Is that correct?
I would have to see specifics. You can free to follow up with me after the call. But I wasn't part of that conversation, so I don't know, but maybe we can connect after and you can give me some more details and I can help put you in the right direction or connect you with the right person to talk about that with.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
can put my information in the chat if that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Janita again, and probably I'm not sure if we have the answer, but with all these changes in administration, do you anticipate to have any changes or any budget cuts due to new administration in place?
I think there's still a lot of unknowns, of course, with the new administration. I will say one very real thing is we have a lot of grants, and there is some federal grants, and there's some confusion at this point as to whether we will be able to move forward with some of those grants. But I don't know that we have any other information at this time.
I'm
I
gonna jump
do have a
in.
question. I'm sorry, Naomi, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And I forgot to introduce myself. I am in the current emerging leaders class. So I keep talking and never say who I am. I did submit this question, and so I'll just ask it. And if I tweak it a little, sorry. So recently, in our area, we had the city of Gaithersburg annex a bunch of property into the city of Gaithersburg. And the goal was to change the zoning and make it like really populated. And that impacted the schools that were outside of the city of Gaithersburg. And so we have a lot overcrowding as a lot. And they did build, instead of single family homes, which was zoned in Montgomery County and did not get the exception, they just annexed into the city of Gaithersburg and got around that zoning. And so it made me think, in the grand scheme of things, why would the planning committee board say, what would make them say no to the city just continuing to annex adjacent property over and over and over again? Like, what would say no to any annexation? And I know the city of Rockville probably does it, and who knows, I'm sure others want to annex and make their city bigger. What would be the reason not to annex, not to approve it?
So annexation is not something that the planning department weighs in, but I think it's the council that makes the final determination. From my understanding with annexation rules, the county cannot prevent annexation if it falls into the maximum the maximum expansion limit. So which is usually contiguous properties with the municipalities. So the county can't say no to annexation.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you.
And I asked, because you sent this question earlier, I asked a couple of my colleagues for this, so I can send you some information on that if you're interested.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thanks.
We did have another question submitted by someone that is not here, so I'm happy to ask it because it's a great question, but I don't want to talk over anyone that is here that would like to ask a question. So I'll just do a quick pause, or please unmute and speak. Okay, this is a question from Dave McGill. He's the class of Core 2000. And he asked, how are things going in terms of new or pending permits to build duplexes, et cetera, informally single family zoned areas, middle income focused new units, and more density around metro stations? I think that was a little, I think that's kind of tied into something that you talked about a little bit earlier, Lisa, but I don't know if you want to dive in a little more.
Sure. So this is pertinent for right now. So every year I fill out a survey for the Housing Association of Nonprofit Developers that looks at our production. So last year we had about 3,000 units and about 1,000 building permits. About 70% of those were for multifamily, and those multifamily were usually around and transit-oriented development in areas like Bethesda, North Bethesda, Silver Spring. Duplexes aren't currently allowed in single-family zones right now, so we didn't get any permits for those. That was some part of what the Attainable Housing Strategies was looking at, and what the Housing Now package will look at on selected roads. Middle income housing. So we're not doing a great job of producing new housing for middle income households. I think I read in the Montgomery newsletter that every new build in the county, single family attached or detached, went for over $1 million last year, starting point. So that is something that we're working at, and that hopefully this Housing Now package that has an emphasis on workforce housing can help tackle too.
Thank you. And if there aren't any other questions, if there's anything else that Lisa or Dave would like to, oh, Toby raised her hand. Excellent, Toby.
And I'm sorry, I also realized I haven't introduced myself. I'm Toby Prince-Flatnick. I'm with Capacity Partners. It's a sort of boutique consulting firm. And I am, I think, class of 2007. Clearly, I'm in my 50s. It was a long time ago. So I think 2007. I have a question just to piggyback, Lisa, on the comment you just made. How is workforce being defined nowadays? Workforce housing means wildly different things to different politicians and people.
I have a note. I'm going to pull that up. I don't know off the top of my head, but we're working on a presentation for that. So workforce housing is generally 70 to 120% AMI. So it's about $100,000 to about $180,000 for it. There's variations in there for household size.
And can you just tell us what AMI stands for?
Yeah, area median income. So area median income is something that HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, does to kind of qualify for affordable housing projects, but it's also used colloquial in housing policy language to kind of define programs and policies and who they go to those units.
Awesome. And I think Mary has her hand up.
Two things. Toby, first of all, I know Lake Forest Mall is currently, I think they have almost a master plan in place, and it's going to the city of Gaithersburg. They are the ones administering it. So if you go to their website, you might see what's happening with that. I know it's going to be mixed use. They're not going to be single family homes. They're all going to be multifamily. I believe it's going to be like a Kentlands type of thing where they have businesses mixed in with the living spaces. I also wanted to ask either Lisa or David, in another presentation, I heard about a development going in that's very, very green. They have geothermal capability. They have, when they're building, they're putting in solar panels. They're doing all kinds of things for the environment. Does the county have any support for that?
This is out, I think, outside of both of our areas of expertise. There certainly are incentives to encourage development to be more green. Lisa, maybe you can take that a little bit more, but that's outside of our area.
I'm not an expert on environmental policy, but in a lot of our master plans, we kind of have been pushing for things like more green cover in terms of what we ask for in development. So that's something certainly that we're looking for, but I don't know a lot of specifics. And Toby, were you looking for Lake Forest or White Flint Mall?
Both.
Okay, so Lake Forest is in the city of Gaithersburg, but White Flint is in the county. So that's the one we'll follow up on.
Thank you. And I'll look at the City of Gaithersburg website. Thank you, Mary.
Allison,
Oh,
may I?
Stephanie,
I can't
thank
figure out
you.
how to get my hand up. I
That's
used to be able
great.
to do this. Did they change something? All these updates. Sorry. Stephanie Helsing. I am the president and CEO of the Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce. And I am a current core participant. So kind of in the middle of the program. But I think, Mary, the project you're probably referring to is United Therapeutics expansion or their headquarters in general in downtown Silver Spring.
I'm not sure. I forget the name of it.
Okay, because they actually have a reputation for being extremely green. Their building actually is completely heated by geothermal, and they're actually doing they have a private-public partnership right now with the county to rebuild some things for the county, put up a new county garage, completely retrofitted with solar panels, as well as the stations for EVs. That is something that they themselves pride themselves on. Their executive director lives in Silver Spring, and everything that Martine does looks through the lens of, if we are going to be developing this and disrupting, then we need to make sure that we are doing things to the best of our ability and that we are giving back. So that's kind of the premise of what they do in general. But they work very closely with Park and Planning, and they've also changed a number of zoning laws and policies and have had to work very closely with the county to achieve their net zero building in the capacity that exists today.
Sound like them. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's an exciting project, and we're very lucky to have it in downtown Silver Spring, not gonna lie.
Absolutely.
Anyone else want to unmute? Otherwise, I'll turn it back to David and Lisa to just kind of give us some closing thoughts, things you're working on, things you're excited about, things you'd like us to know.
Good question. Gosh, I'm trying to think, what are we working on that we haven't talked about? In terms of like transportation, street design, we have a big focus over the past few years of reorienting the way we think about travel from largely focused on motor vehicles to focused on how people get around by all modes of transportation. So as part of that, we're working on, project after project, sort of beefing up what we call complete streets, our abilities to design streets, thinking about all the different types of people that use them. So that's a big focus for us right now that we're going to continue to work on over the coming years.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say for housing, there's a lot going on in the county right now. The council and the planning board have, placed a lot of emphasis on housing production and especially increasing access to affordable housing lately, whether it's, looking at things like county-owned land or creating zoning text amendments that allow religious institutions and private institutions to build on their land to build affordable housing. I think housing now is a great next step to look at, expanding access to housing and expanding opportunities for workforce housing. I would say that this is also a good time to get involved because the budget conversation is ongoing, and that, will kind of that dictates a lot of, how much money goes to the Housing Initiative Fund, which is our housing trust fund that builds affordable housing. So I'd say, make sure. It sounds like you all want to be engaged. Make sure you sign up for like the county's e-letters, the planning board's e-letters, to make sure that you stay involved and aware of, what's going on in the community. Because both the planning board, the planning department want to work with the community on developing, a vision for this county over the next, 30 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I just wanted, while I have this audience, to just kind of tell you all about some new things at Leadership Montgomery. This will not be our last Q&A. We're going to plan something with Suzanne Jenkins around the arts. Again, the Thrive 2050 discussion. That'll be our next conversation. But Sarah, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot to talk to us about our new Engage Montgomery one-day program. If you could share this with your networks. Obviously, the Department of Planning is just one of Montgomery County's departments. There are several, and we are offering a new one-day Engage Montgomery program to kind of talk about all of the different entities in Montgomery County and to introduce people. And Sarah, I'll give you let you do an elevator pitch for 1 minute.
Sure. Thanks so much, Allison. So Engage Montgomery is really for those folks who can't commit to one of our longer programs. As you know, Leadership Montgomery is all about creating learning spaces, convening folks, and learning new things, whether that's skills or learning more about the community. And Engage Montgomery is really focused on that learning about the community aspect. And so this is a series of engagement opportunities, right? Engage Montgomery. The first one is going to be all about getting to know the county systems a little bit more, county government. The next one will be more on the kind of climate solutions, sustainability space, and what's happening in the county in that regard. There's a lot coming up. There's a lot to learn. We're interested to hear what you want to learn about as you're getting to know more and more in the community. But really excited to launch this offering that should make our programming and the connections that we bring together more accessible to a broader range of leaders and community members here in the county.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And just one more last opportunity for anyone to say anything else.
So I think we heard a really good tidbit about making sure you're getting those newsletters. So I'm just going to drop a link in the chat here. If you are not already signed up for the county's digital communication services, the e-subscriptions, Oh my goodness. You can really, truly customize this to whatever you are interested in coming out of Montgomery County. I think there's something like 100 different newsletters you can sign up for from all of the different agencies and departments that are doing the work that make our community run. And they are putting out really great information. So I encourage you to create an account and customize that account to get the newsletters that are meaningful for you. And that includes, the newsletters from your council members, whether that's your district council member or the at-large council members.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great information. Thank all of you for joining